Welcome back to the deep dive. We're really excited today because we're kicking off something a bit different, a focused series aimed squarely at helping you prepare for the CSWIP 3.1 Welding Inspector Exam.
That's right.
Our goal isn't just finding answers, it's about digging into the why behind them, really turning that knowledge into something solid.
Exactly, because that deeper understanding, well, that's what makes a truly effective inspector out in the field, not just for the exam, but every day. We'll use these multiple choice questions to spark some critical thinking, to really dissect the scenarios.
Perfect. Okay, let's unpack this first one then. It gets right to the heart of quality assurance. So, first question. A welder and procedure requalification would be required. And your options are A, when the run-out date of the procedure has been reached.
Right.
B, every year. C, when changing from day to night shift work. Or D, when there is a change in an essential variable.
All right, and the answer we're looking for here is D. When there's a change in an essential variable, definitely D.
Okay, now, I can see why that's critical, but you often hear people think, well, maybe A or B, like an annual check or an expiry date, should be enough, right?
Right, that's a common thought.
Yeah.
And regular reviews aren't bad, but they aren't the trigger for requalification itself. What's fascinating here is that essential variables are the specific things, the parameters, that if you change them, you will significantly affect the weld's properties, its integrity.
So like changing the actual process or the metal?
Exactly. Process, filler metal, base material, maybe a big shift in heat input, even the joint design.
Yeah.
If one of those core things changes, the original qualification just isn't valid anymore.
Right, because the conditions are different.
Precisely. You proved it worked under those conditions, change them, and you need to prove it again. It's not about the calendar, it's about fundamental changes that matter to the weld.
Here's where it gets really interesting then. If you skip that requalification after changing an essential variable, you're essentially just hoping for the best.
Pretty much. You could be producing welds that look okay visually, but are fundamentally weaker.
And as an inspector, you need to know that the process behind the weld is still sound, not just look at the surface.
Absolutely. Overlooking that could lead to, serious problems down the line, costly reworks, or much worse. It's a cornerstone of quality control.
Okay, good point. Let's shift gears now. Question 2 moves us towards site safety, a really vital area. Question 2 asks, main reason degreasing agents should always be dried from metals prior to welding is because they are likely to. Options are 1, increase the arc voltage.
Okay.
2, produce hazardous fumes. 3, slow down the welding speed. Or 4, produce lack of fusion defects.
And the correct answer here, and it's a critical safety one, is option 2, produce hazardous fumes.
Right. Now, sometimes this seems like a small step, just drying something off, especially if people are in a hurry. Can you emphasize just how serious these fumes can be?
Oh, absolutely. This is something everyone needs to take very seriously. Many degreasers contain things like chlorinated hydrocarbons. When those hit the heat and UV from the welding arc, they don't just, evaporate nicely. They break down chemically.
And that produces?
It can produce really toxic gases.
Yeah.
Phosgene gas is the notorious one. Extremely dangerous.
Phosgene. I've heard of that.
Yeah, it can cause severe lung damage. Sometimes the symptoms are delayed, which is also dangerous. I remember an incident early in my career. A tiny bit of residual degreaser. Everyone thought it was dry. The welder got immediate, really bad throat and lung irritation. It was a sharp lesson for everyone. Complete drying isn't optional.
Wow, that really drives it home. This raises an important question about the inspector's role then, doesn't it?
It does.
It's beyond just checking the weld specs. It's about safeguarding the people doing the work. Ensuring proper prep, including that drying step, is fundamental.
Absolutely fundamental.
Yeah.
Protecting personnel is paramount.
Okay, moving to question 3. This one looks at preheating, specifically for carbon steel using MMA. Question 3. Preheating a carbon steel manual metal arc welding is carried out to minimize the risk of options. A, scattered porosity. B, wormhole porosity. C, parent metal cracking. Or D, lack of penetration.
All right, and for this one, the answer is C, parent metal cracking.
Preheating. We hear it prevents cracking, but for someone maybe worried about slowing down production, how does it actually work against parent metal cracking? Why is it so necessary?
That's a great question because it gets into the why. When you weld carbon steels, especially thicker sections or higher carbon types, the area heats and cools very fast.
Right, very localized heat.
Exactly, and that rapid cooling can cause problems.
Sure.
First, you can form brittle structures like martensite in the heat-affected zone, the HAZ. very crack prone.
Okay.
Second, and this is often the big one, it traps hydrogen. Hydrogen is always around in welding, and rapid cooling doesn't give it time to diffuse out.
So it gets stuck in the metal.
Trapped hydrogen, plus stress, plus a brittle structure, that's the recipe for hydrogen-induced cold cracking. And it can happen hours, even days later.
Delayed cracking, nasty stuff.
Very nasty. Preheating essentially slows that whole cooling process down. It's like putting the brakes on.
Giving things time to adjust.
Yes, it allows for a less brittle microstructure to form and gives that hydrogen a chance to escape. So while it takes a bit longer up front, it prevents potentially huge problems later. It's an investment.
So what does this all mean for the inspector? It means checking preheat isn't just ticking a box.
Not at all.
You need to confirm it's done right, the temperature, the duration, the whole procedure to ensure you get that tough, durable weld without those hidden cracks waiting to cause trouble.
Precisely, ensuring structural integrity.
Okay, on to question 4. This one focuses on a specific process, submerged arc welding, or SAW. Question 4 asks, which of the following is an inspection point in sub-arc welding? And the options: 1, flux mesh size; 2, gas type; 3, tungsten size; 4, gas flow rate.
Right. And for SAW, the correct answer is option 1, flux mesh size.
Now, someone familiar with MIG or TIG might immediately think of gas, right? Gas type, flow rate, maybe even tungsten size for TIG. Why are those wrong here, and why is flux mesh size the key for SAW?
Good point. It highlights the differences. SAW is submerged arc welding. There's no external shielding gas like in MIG or TIG. Instead, you have this granular flux that covers everything at the arc, the molten pool. That flux becomes the shield when it melts and vaporizes, but it does much more.
Like what?
It actively affects the weld chemistry. It deoxidizes, refines the grain structure, adds alloys sometimes. So the flux itself is a critical consumable.
And the mesh size?
The mesh size dictates how it flows, how well it covers the weld, how it interacts with the arc. Too coarse, maybe poor coverage. Too fine, maybe feeding issues or slag problems. It directly impacts weld quality.
So gas type, tungsten, flow rate, they're irrelevant for SAW.
Completely irrelevant for SAW itself.
Yes.
Those are critical for gas-shielded processes, but in SAW, the flux does that job and more.
Okay, let's unpack this then. It really hammers home that as an inspector, you can't just have one checklist, can you?
Definitely not.
You need to know the specifics, the unique ingredients, and critical points for each process. SAW, MIG, TIG, whatever you're looking at.
That's exactly it. Tailor your inspection to the process.
All right, final question for this deep dive. Number 5 takes us right back to basics material science. Question 5. Tensile strength can be increased in steel by your options: A, annealing bat; B, galvanizing; C, addition of carbon.D; casting.
Okay, and the fundamental answer here is C, addition of carbon.
This feels like Metallurgy 101, but it's crucial. How does adding carbon actually boost tensile strength? And are there trade-offs an inspector needs to be aware of?
Absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, carbon is probably the most important strengthening element in steel.
How does it work mechanically?
Well, those small carbon atoms fit into the iron crystal structure, or they form hard particles called carbides. Think of them like tiny obstacles.
Obstacles to what?
Obstacles to movement within the metal crystal structure specifically. The movement of things called dislocations, which allow the metal to deform.
So carbon makes it harder for the steel to bend or stretch.
Exactly. It hinders that movement, making the material harder and stronger, increasing its tensile strength. But there's always a trade-off, isn't there?
Usually is. What's the downside?
More carbon generally means less ductility, less toughness. The steel becomes more brittle and harder to weld without cracking.
Which brings us back to things like preheating for higher carbon steels.
Precisely. It all connects. That's why inspectors see specific procedures for these materials. As for the other options, annealing softens steel, galvanizing is just a zinc coating for corrosion, and casting is how you make the shape, not how you intrinsically strengthen the material itself by composition.
Got it. That really shows the link between the material's basic chemistry and how it performs, and how we have to treat it during welding. Understanding that why is key for an inspector.
It informs everything: material choice, procedure development, heat treatment, all aimed at getting the performance you need safely.
So a quick recap. We've covered re-qualification triggers with essential variables, the serious hazards of improper degreasing, the science behind preheating carbon steel, specific inspection points for SAW like flux mesh size, and the fundamental role of carbon in steel strength. Quite a range.
Indeed. And notice how understanding the core principle behind each answer is key. It's not just about passing the exam. It's about building that solid foundation for making good calls throughout your inspection career.
Couldn't agree more. So as you continue your preparation, think about these connections. How does a change in an essential variable, say using a higher carbon steel, link back to the need for careful preheating? How might residual degreaser compound problems? Consider those potential chain reactions. What links is the sharp inspector always watching for? Something to ponder. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.